Awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and kick it off since I probably had some people waiting, so sorry about that. Let me make sure I don't have any. Oh no, can't show that. There you go. All right. So welcome to session 14. Today we're going to be starting off React, which is really exciting. You guys have probably heard me talk a lot about React throughout the course, and I'm excited to say that we finally got there. So I don't know if you guys remember that Figma diagram we did on day one, but React was always the kind of the end goal for front end. So now that we're out there, we're almost done with the front end section of the course. So give yourselves a huge pat on the back because this is no small feat. And as anybody who's learned React will tell you, React is very difficult. So it's gonna get challenging every week. As you've kind of seen, it's been ramping up, but hopefully it's all starting to come together. Hopefully last week you guys had some good practice with Svelte, and I don't want to say like throw all that Svelte knowledge away. A lot of it is going to come in handy, but it's probably best that from now on you just only focus on React rather than kind of doing Svelte and React. I think doing both will confuse you a little bit in terms of syntax. But let's just get into React and hopefully we can get a good grasp today. So some exciting news. We finally have our app working. That's why I was a little late. I was doing a last minute bug fix, and I still have more bug fixes to push up. But if you go to this URL, beta.onplayground.com, you will see a learning app that will accompany this course. So as many of you guys have known, for the homework, I've kind of been delegating the homework to like a lot of third-party platforms. Like, you guys have seen me recommend the Code Academy course or like Learn.js, like those types of web pages. We went ahead and made our own that is going to be a lot more, interactive. And we're going to be updating it a lot going forward. But for now, right now, it only covers HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React. But I think it could be a good thing to go through and just like review everything because the app actually goes much more in depth into these topics than we did in the past couple weeks. So this will be the homework as well. Like we'll start having homework on this app. So we'll come back to this at the end. But pretty exciting. Okay, so let's go ahead and just overview the agenda. So first we're going to just talk about, the basics. What is React? Just kind of get our bearings there. We're going to talk about something called the virtual DOM, which is the system that React kind of revolves around. Next, we're going to talk about JSX, which is the syntax that React uses. Then we're going to talk about components, term you guys have probably seen before since we just ended our Svelte unit, so components are very similar there. State and props, you guys might have some idea of this term just from Svelte, but we're going to talk about what that means for React. If we have time, we'll talk about hooks. It's not a requirement for today since already this is going to be a lot. And then we're going to talk about the homework at the end and go over some Q&A. So I think also today you can use this week as not only a way to dive into React, but also to catch up a little bit and do some review. I know every week we've been going and just kind of like going through all the units. But this week, now that we have our app up, it could be a good opportunity to go back and kind of review some old units that we covered in the past. So that'll be in the homework. Okay, cool. So let's talk about what is React. I don't have any slide content for this, as you can see. I've took the lazy route today, but I just thought we could kind of like just go to the React website together and check that out. So this is the React website, reactjs.org. React is basically a JavaScript front-end library for building user interfaces. And in the three main, paradigms of React is the first that's declarative. This was very similar as Svelte, right? Declarative views, you just design simple views for your state, and React efficiently updates and renders just the right components when your data changes. So we'll talk a lot more about this when we get to the virtual DOM, but that's the first paradigm. Second is component-based, right? React, just like Svelte, is component-based. So for example, this web page that we're looking at, this probably has like a header component And in the header component, we have like link components, like each of these is a component, and so forth, so forth. So basically, your app is just components made of components made of components, and that actually ends up being a very efficient way to build applications. And we'll talk more about that virtual DOM. And then third is learn once, write anywhere. This is one of the big advantages of React over, say, Svelte or Angular. It lets you basically develop new features in React without rewriting existing code. And the other big advantage of React that a lot of people might not know is that you can also render React on the server, and you can build mobile apps using a library called React Native. So we're not talking about React Native today, but what this means is that once you guys are familiar with React, this means you can go out and build your very own mobile app, no problem, which is really cool. So I'll click into React Native really quick. React Native basically used the exact same syntax as React, so it looks the same as Web React. The only difference is that it's going to be turned into a mobile app. Not only that, you can write a iOS app or an Android app all with the same code base, which is really, really nice. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with mobile development, but for mobile development, typically it's like if you want to build an app on the phone for Android, typically you write that in Java or Kotlin or something like that. And then if you want to build an app for iPhone or iOS, you would have to write it in Swift or Objective-C. So basically there are specific languages, there are different languages used for different platforms for mobile. That's like how mobile dev usually is written. But with React Native, what this means is using only one code base, so writing only React Native, you can have that app rendered onto Android or iOS or more. So this is really nice, right? So if you ever want to build a mobile app or mobile company, and you don't want to worry about writing or learning 2 new languages, you can just use React and get going. There's definitely some downsides to using React Native for certain projects, but a lot of very popular apps, some of the most popular apps are built in React Native, namely Spotify, Instagram, several others. So if it's good enough for them, then chances are for most use cases, React Native could be a pretty good pick. So here's a list of a lot of the apps that are on React Native. So Discord's actually on there. So Discord is written in React Native, which is pretty cool. Tesla, Facebook, Pinterest, etc., etc. So pretty nice. Anywho, I'm going to go back to React. So basically those are the 3 main paradigms of React. React is made by Facebook, or Meta now, and it's definitely one of their best exports, I would say. React has been around for like 9 years now, something like that. And one of the good things about React is that it's so popular, right? I kind of did this exercise in one of my office hours a long time ago, but just to show you how hireable React is, like if you learn React, like what's your chance of getting hired? If we just typed in React.js here, I'm going to look in like, I don't know, just Bay Area. Okay, so it says in the Bay Area, if we look up React.js, we get 1,500 jobs. So, 1,500 jobs approximately. And let's just compare this to like something like, I don't know if Angular is a fair comparison because Angular is far less popular, but let's just look at Angular. As you can see, there's only like 500, 483. React is very popular, basically. React is very hireable still, even though it's been around for quite some time. And yeah, it's just like a really solid choice to learn. I would say how it compares with Svelte is React is definitely harder to learn. It has a higher skill curve than Svelte. There's a lot more like tools and complications that are on React as opposed to Svelte. The other advantage that Svelte has over React is that Svelte is much more performant. So if you want to build an app that's like lightning fast and just can load super, super quickly and isn't very big bundle size, React might not always be the best choice for that. Like React is fast, but Svelte is just much faster in terms of performance. Cool. So really quick, let's talk about the second part of this agenda, which is the virtual DOM. So the virtual DOM is basically how React works. And there's going to be, in the homework, it'll cover the virtual DOM in more depth, but I think the best way to explain the virtual DOM I found is to use this example. So let's say you build a React app, and in your app you have a list of, like, let's say you're building a to-do list app, and your to-do list happens to render like 100,000 items. So you have a list item, you have a list of like 100,000 items, right? And let's say your user scrolls down to the, I don't know, like 50,000th item and deletes it, right? Let's say they delete the 50,000th item. So without something like a virtual DOM, so if you were to build this to-do list app with just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, if a user deletes the 50,000th item in a list, with regular HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, it has to re-render that entire list. So that's extremely not performant, right? Because it takes a long time to render all those items, and then basically if someone makes a change somewhere in that list, with just HTML, CSS, JavaScript, it has to re-render the entire thing. So that's just with the regular DOM approach. So the virtual DOM is a solution for this, because the virtual DOM basically does a smart comparison. The virtual DOM basically sees that has a list of 100,000 items. It sees that the 50,000th item changed, and it only updates that 50,000th item. It does not re-render an entire list. So it kind of does a smart comparison. It kind of compares like, okay, what is the difference between my data before and after the change? And it only updates the part that changed. So this just means it's a lot more performative than doing that same example with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So that's essentially how the virtual DOM works. And essentially you can think of it as like a layer, like a layer on top of the HTML DOM. So it's like a layer made in JavaScript that it pretends to be a DOM on top of the DOM. I know that's kind of confusing, and honestly, you don't need to like actually understand that too deeply, but it is helpful in, like, if you have an interview question they ask about the virtual DOM, it does help to kind of know the mechanism of how it works. But anyway, I just use that list, the 100,000 item list. I think that's one of the best ways to like answer that question with an example. Cool. So let's move on to JSX. So you've already seen some JSX here on this webpage, and JSX is basically this syntax. It's like putting it looks like HTML, right? But at the same time, it also looks like JavaScript. So one way I like to think about JSX is it puts HTML inside of JavaScript. And the comparison I use is in Svelte, right? When you guys have written Svelte style is putting JavaScript in JavaScript in HTML. So Svelte is JavaScript and HTML. JSX or React syntax is HTML in JavaScript. So they're kind of opposite in how they look, which is kind of weird. But basically JSX is JavaScript, but the X part of at the end of JSX implies that it's JavaScript with superpowers. Let's just say that. And the superpower particularly is being able to return these elements, like these HTML looking elements. So that's basically what JSX is. And the next part I would like to talk about really quick are components. So this is an example of how you create a basic component in React, right? It doesn't look as friendly as how you do it in Svelte, but that's what I mean by React is a little bit more complex. Another thing to note about components is that there's many different ways to create components. This style that's in the React docs is actually outdated. I actually don't want you to create your components this way, even though this is what's on the docs. And unfortunately, one of the problems about React and what makes it hard is that React has changed a lot over the years. Like back when I learned React like 7 years ago, like this is the rage. Like this is the way to write React, like with these class components, right? You would say class and then the name of the component, and then you would say extends React component, and then you would put a render method, and then you would return the div. It was a lot. It was a lot to run, or a lot of code to write. So basically, the React team looked at this and was like, we could simplify this a lot more. So now what we have are functional components. So the way you write components like this, these are called class components, which is the old way. The new way, and the way I would like you guys to write components, is with functional components. So I don't have an example on this page, but I'll show you guys what that looks like in just a second. So yeah, components, you can think of these as the same way as Svelte. They're just pieces of the page. So once we go to our demo, this stuff will all come together a lot more. Cool. So before we, I guess, move on any further, I don't think it's easy for me to go through the DOM and like show all of these examples because these are kind of old. Let's go ahead and actually just do a very similar example that we did with Svelte and just create a new React app from scratch. Since you guys have already worked with Svelte, I can kind of skim through some of the other stuff and we just dive straight into the demo, and I think that'll actually be a faster way to learn it. So to create a brand new React app, there's many different ways, but typically they'll recommend this method called create React app, right? You guys remember for Svelte, we use that npm script. It's basically the same thing for React. We're going to use a special npm script called create React app, and it's going to create a blank React project for us. So I'm going to go ahead and do that really quick on my own computer. Let's go ahead and look up create React app. Yep, create React app right here. So set up a modern web app by running one command. And so the command is just npx create React app space whatever you want the app to be called. So let's copy this command. I'm going to go ahead and open up my terminal. All right, so let's do this part together. Go ahead and open up your terminal and go to your projects folder. Okay, I'm in my projects folder. Now I'm going to run npx create -react -app space, and I'm going to call it something. So I'm just going to call this React to demo because this is just a demo. Press enter, and then it's going to create my app. Need to install the packages. Yes, we want to install it. So I press Y. All right, give it a couple minutes. It might take a little longer than Svelte, but do let me know if you have issues with this, because this is how we're going to be spinning up some of our React projects in the beginning with this script. So it's good to know that it is working. And then while that's installing, I'm going to go ahead and make this a little smaller and open up my editor. Where is it? Okay. So it looks like it's almost done. I'm gonna go ahead and close. Okay, almost done. All right. Okay, so it's giving you a bunch of commands now. It tells you like, oh, cd into the project and to run npm start. So they give you all these commands. Start is the only one you need to know for now. You don't need to worry about these other ones. Let's go ahead and open this folder in VS Code instead. So I'm going to go to VS Code, open folder, and then I'm going to go to my Bootcamp projects, React demo, and then I'm going to open that. Okay. Now I'm going to close my terminal. Yes, I trust it. All right, I'm going to open up the terminal here in VS Code just to have it all in one place. Okay, cool. So let's walk through our code and see what we have so far. So let's just, as always, I like to start with the package.json. Remember, the package.json is the entry file for every node project. So here they give us some dependencies actually just some dependencies. They give us some testing libraries. We're not going to cover testing today, but I think there is a unit in testing in the homework. There's React, React DOM, React scripts. These are all just stuff that comes bundled with the Create React app. And yeah, really these two packages are the most important ones. This is what allows you to actually import React into your code. And let's see what happens if we run npm start. So in my terminal, I'm in the folder and I'm going to run npm start. Actually, I already have a server running on my, let me shut down my other server. Okay, there we go. Okay. All right. So basically, I ran npm start and it opened up a browser tab for me. That's nice. And this is what we have so far. So we just have a blank website with this spinning React logo. So if you see this, then that's good news. That means everything is working. All right, so that's our app. Let's go into the source folder and look at React piece by piece. So I open up the source folder. We're going to start in the index.js file. And so this is the file that connects React, our React app in the virtual DOM, to the HTML DOM. So do you guys, I don't know if you guys remember, but in Svelte we had our main.js, I think, that did something similar. It basically selected, see, we have the document.getElementById root. This selects something on the DOM, right? The real DOM, the HTML DOM. So basically React attaches its virtual DOM app to the HTML DOM using this line. So if we go to the index.html, I think it's in public. Yeah, public index.html. You should see a div with the ID root, right? An empty div. This should remind you a little bit of Svelte because Svelte operates in a very similar manner. The difference is that Svelte, I don't believe, uses a virtual DOM, but React does. So basically, React in that index.js file, we are selecting this empty div, right here with document.getElementById. And then React DOM.createRoot creates a new React application at that element. So that's why we don't do root.render. And inside this app component, so if we look at this app component, which is imported from the app file, so we go to the app file. So this app basically contains all of the code that we have in our app. So this all here matches up with what's in here. So, you know, if you were at our Svelte sessions, this should feel fairly familiar, right? Maybe the syntax looks very different, but this concept of using JavaScript to render an app at a empty HTML div, that should somewhat feel familiar, I hope. And once again, I also want to make the note that you do not have to memorize this, because chances are, if you're building React, you're not writing all of this code from scratch, right? You're usually using like create React app or create Next.js app or some kind of like script that does it for you. So 99% of the time, you do not actually have to write this, but it's just good to know how React works, right? That's something that will come handy for interview questions, especially. So this is basically the app, the entry app for React. There's some other like junk in here too that we don't need to worry about. Let's just go to the app.js because this is what I want to show you all. Okay, so this is a component. And as you guys might notice, like this component looks very different from the component in the docs. So if we go back to the docs really quick, you see this? This is how they define components in docs, right? With the class keyword. So we have class hello message extends React component. And here we don't have the word class. All we do have is the word function. So this right here is the best way to visualize the difference between the two ways of creating components, right? So on the left, we have the class way of creating components. And this is the old way. Old being like pre-2016. I think it's maybe 2017. I don't know exactly when people started using functional. Okay, 2018, Jackie says. Thank you, Jackie. So I guess people no one really used functional components before then because I don't think they existed. And in 2018, React was like, you know what? This is way too confusing. This class stuff is way too confusing, especially for beginners. Let's change React to use functional components. So these two pieces of code do very similar things. They both create components, but generally the rule of thumb is you should not mix and match. I don't think React works very well if you have some components that are class components and other components that are functional components in your app. If you're going to use one of these, pick one and stick to it, right? Because otherwise there's going to be issues. Like React just won't be very happy with you if you create like class components and have them inside functional components. So anyways, I much prefer functional components. As you can see, it's much simpler, but let's go through what is going on here really quick. So as you can see, to create a component, all you need to do is say the word function, the name of the component, and remember, y'all, the component name has to be capital case, right? The first letter should be capitalized, and that's how React knows that this is a component. I don't think it'll actually work if we lowercase it and export it. I think React will get angry and throw an error because components have to be capital case. Okay, and since this component, if we want this component, if we wanted to just show some, like render some HTML, all we need to do is return. And return, in the parentheses of return, that's where we can start writing this JSX. So remember, this JSX is it looks like HTML, and it kind of is, but it's technically JavaScript. So as you can see, y'all, like we can have variables in the JSX. Remember Svelte, how we had the curly brackets to add variables? Well, we have something very similar in React, right? So here we're importing the logo. I guess this logo is the spinning React logo that we have right here. So we're importing it from a file, and let's say we want to load it as an image. Well, all we need to do is just put curly braces and then put the logo variable, right? So all of this around here is like, it's HTML, but as soon as we put curly braces, everything that's in the curly braces is going to be like JavaScript. So it's going to be very weird, right? Like, once again, React is not easy, and I think a lot of the complication is just like how weird it looks. But if you guys are familiar with Svelte, hopefully it's starting to come together how they're similar, but they are quite different, right? Because one uses JSX and Svelte is just basically just HTML syntax. Okay, so what else to show here? So everything else is fairly straightforward, right? This is all HTML stuff. Once again, same as Svelte, we have hot reloading. So if I make a change here, so if I were to delete this whole like text and maybe just change it to edit something, if I save it, so as soon as I save it, you can see, guys, on the left here, my page automatically refreshed. So we still have that. That's nice. And that's called hot reloading. What else to show here? Yeah, everything else is fairly similar. One thing that you guys might notice is check out this class name, right? This looks kind of weird. You guys might have not have seen this before, right? Why not just put class? Well, unfortunately, if you guys remember here, with the, where is it? On the left here, with the class way of creating components, because class is a special word in JavaScript, the React team realized that they could not have the word class in the JSX, right? So it's kind of a silly reason, honestly, but it makes sense. And so that's why in React, anytime you're going to write the word class, like HTML class, you need to actually call it class name. If you just call it class, it's going to throw an error. It needs to be class name. So if you see me mistype class name before instead of class, that's why. That's because I'm used to React. So someone asked really quick, where is the app function rendering? Yeah, so if you go to the index.js file, this is like the entry point of the app. And here we can see that the app, the app component, so this line right here, line 10, this app component is getting rendered in this like React strict mode wrapper. You don't need to worry about strict mode right now. And this is being rendered at document.getElement by ID root. So this whole app is being connected to, so here's our index.html. It's being connected to this empty div, right? Remember in Svelte we had something very similar. Let me actually open up the Svelte project really quick so you guys can see what I mean. Where's Svelte? Okay, I'm opening up the Svelte project really quick that we made from last week. So you guys remember in Svelte, where is it? Routes. Should be like a main.js or something. I forgot what it's called. Routes page.svelte. Oh wait, never mind. This is using Svelte kit, so I guess just regular Svelte we have that main function. But since this is using Svelte kit, I forgot we don't have it. Let me open up this regular Svelte one. New window. Svelte counter. Okay, here we go. I think this is what we want. Yeah. So remember in in Svelte, regular Svelte, not SvelteKit, this is what I'm trying to refer to. Like in Svelte, if we want to connect our Svelte app to the HTML, this is basically the equivalent, like this new app target document.getElement by ID app. This is basically the equivalent of this, right? They're doing basically the exact same thing, just Svelte. This is Svelte on the left and React on the right. So it's a way to connect the app to HTML. Okay, cool. So that's all good. What else to demo here? So yeah, this is just this syntax is gonna be weird, and like in the beginning, you're gonna get thrown off by the class name stuff and just like how to create components. But let's go ahead and maybe start simpler and create a new component. So let's actually just delete all of this, and let's go ahead and maybe we just create a basic landing page, right? This is kind of the same exercise we did for Svelte. So I'm going to create a landing page. So I'm going to replace all this with a landing page. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a header component or like a navigation component at the top. And then we're going to put like a hero section under that. And then we're going to put like a feature section. So each of those should be components. And I'll show you how we're going to create those components in React. So let's just delete all this for now. We don't need to worry about this. And I'm not using Tailwind for this project. I probably should though. I guess if we want to use Tailwind, we can just follow the instructions on how to add Tailwind. So I've just Googled create React app Tailwind. I'm just going to look at the documentation. Okay, so we just run npx create project. Yeah, we did that already. Okay, so we just need to install some stuff to get Tailwind up and running. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So clear, I'm going to Control-C in my terminal to shut down my server. This makes it easier to install the commands or to run commands. So I'm going to paste this command, press enter. And I'm going to copy this command, press enter. Right, this is just Tailwind setup. This should be somewhat familiar from last time. Now I'm going to copy the code here for the Tailwind config. I'm going to paste that here, save. Now we have to add the Tailwind directive. So I'm going to copy this. It says to add it to your source index.js. So source index.css. I'm just going to delete all of this and replace it with the Tailwind stuff. There we go. Okay, so that's all. I think that's all we need to do. And I think if we run npm start now, we should have Tailwind. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and just get started with building our landing page. So this is our landing page. Let's go ahead and get some Tailwind components because I'm lazy. What else can we grab? Yeah, okay, I'm just going to go to the hero section. I guess I'll just start with the hero section. So I'm going to copy this. Oh, one thing though, if you're using Tailwind UI, you can also, they have a drop down to make it easier for you. Because remember, if you copy this HTML code, look at all these class words, right? And remember that the word class, like this HTML syntax, is not going to work in JSX. Even though JSX looks very similar, the main difference is like the fact that all classes have to be renamed class name. So you can copy this block into your code and change all the classes to class name, but I don't recommend that. Especially since Tailwind UI provides this drop down that you can just select React and boom, they basically give you the whole React component. Actually, this is a little too complex for an example. Maybe I'll just start without a component. But if you do want to use Tailwind components, make sure you switch the toggle to React. I've made a mistake many times where I copied the regular HTML, and that didn't go so well. Okay, never mind. Forget the components. I'm just going to do it the old school way by coding it myself. So let's go ahead and we did this exercise for Svelte as well. I created a components folder, right, to hold all our components. Right now, in our source folder, it's kind of flat, right? As in we don't have any folders inside, and folders just help us organize better. So I'm going to go ahead and create a components folder in source in the source folder. And then I'm going to first create a header component. So this is going to be the header that's going to be at the top of the page. So I'm going to new file. And remember, for components, we have to capital case it. So the first letter has to be capitalized. So I'm going to say header.js. So you can also do JSX too. Like that's going to work here. But once again, I'm just going for style and consistency. And I can see that in React app, Create React app, they've named everything else with JS instead of JSX. So I'm just going to go with JS as well, even though this file is technically JSX. Kind of confusing, I know, but bear with me. Okay, so I just created a blank file for a component. And remember, to create a component, we have to first define a function, so function. And then we say the name of the component, so header with capital. And then if we want to return, like we want to have some stuff show up, we just return parentheses, and inside the parentheses, this is where we can put our code. So maybe for our header, for now, I'm just gonna put like an HTML header element. Maybe I'll give it some padding, so maybe like px4 or something, py3, I don't know. I'll mess around with it. Maybe we give it a background as well, so like background like gray. Let's give it a dark background, so background gray 900, so dark shade of gray. Let's make the text white. And then for now, that should be good. I'm gonna put a div in here, and I'm just gonna put a fake company logo that I'm just gonna call logo. And I'm just gonna go ahead and make that bold. All right, nothing crazy here, but this is just a very simple component, okay? So I'm gonna save that. Let's create another component for our hero. So in the components folder, I'm gonna create another file called hero.js. And let's do this again. So remember, I actually forgot a key step. When you define a function or you define a component like this, you have to make sure you export it. So I completely forgot to export it here. So what does that look like? Well, if we take a look at app.js, you can see here that they have this export default app. So generally you want the component to be the default export of the file, so that when it's imported, so see here we have export default. If we go to index.js, you can see that we can just import it like this, import app from app. So what happens if I get rid of this default? Well, check this out. Well, first, I guess it doesn't even let me. I think I have to put the export on the function. But if I were to somehow basically get rid of this default, that means when I'm importing it, I have to import it in brackets. That's only if it's not a default. But if it's default, I can just import it as is. We didn't talk too much about imports, and we'll get into that a lot more when we get to Node.js. But if you're curious about how those work in React, that's how you can do it. Anywho, so we basically just need to export default function header. So like export header. And then we can also, what else? Yeah, that should be good. And let's go ahead and create a basic hero as well. So function hero, capital case, return, parentheses, and then I'm just gonna put a very big div. So I'm gonna put like make sure we do class name. Let's do px, what did I have for the header? px4, I'm gonna have it match the same x padding, but I'm gonna give it a lot of y padding. And then I'm just gonna put an h1 here that says, I don't know, lorem ipsum. I don't know what to put here. Okay, this site's not gonna be pretty, guys, but the main takeaway I want us to get is just very basic how to create simple components, nothing more here. So we're gonna export this, export default hero. Okay, perfect. So we have our header, we have our hero. That should be good for now. Let's go into app.js, and now let's go ahead and import them in here. So this is kind of similar to Svelte, right? We have to use these tags symbols and say the component we want. So in this case, we want the header first, so header. And as you can see, as I type it, the IntelliSense highlights, hey, did you mean to automatically import the header component that you made? Yes, I did. So I can just click that, and it automatically imports it for me, which is nice. And then I'm just gonna close that off. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the hero. Hero. Yep. Close that off. I'm going to get rid of this app class name because this is styling that comes with Create React App. So if we look at app.css, you can see that they've added like a center align styling on the app class. So we don't really want that since we're using Tailwind. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Okay. Save that. Let's go back to our app. And oops, I need to run our server. Our server is not running right now. So I'm going to run npm start. All right. While that's loading, one quick note is you notice that this line is not as dark, or rather it's very light. As you can see, the editor is doing that is because I'm not using this variable. It says logo is declared, right? This is the logo that was part of the original boilerplate code. It's declared, but it's not being used, right? Because we deleted all the old code that was using it. So whenever you see a line like this, that it's being declared but not used, feel free to just delete it if you don't plan on using it. Okay, so this is what our site looks like on the left. Kind of not great, not super great, but as you can see, I just want to show you guys what the process of creating basic components looks like, right? Very similar to how you do it in Svelte. In terms of like actually rendering the components like this is the exact same as Svelte, right? But how you create it, that's what I want you guys to take away from today. You have to this is how you create a functional component, create function, the component name, and then you return whatever UI you want to render. Okay, very basic stuff. Oh, thank you so much for the subscription. I really appreciate that. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. Hopefully that all of this is not too crazy yet, right? That's why, hopefully you guys are starting to see why I introduced Svelte first, because Svelte is just a lot, it introduces a lot of this stuff in a lot more digestible way. But really, like for today's session, I don't want us, we're not going to go super crazy into all the stuff that React does. I just want us to get very accustomed to the process of creating a new React app, as well as creating basic components. That's all I want us to get from today. And maybe as like, if we want to push it a little bit, let's wrap up by doing the same counter example that we did in Svelte. Do you guys remember that we made a Svelte app? That was just a counter. Like you click the button and the counter goes up. Let's do the exact same example here in React. So if you guys remember in Svelte, we had state and we had props, right? State is the data that's a part of a component. And we use props when we want to pass that state into another component. So as an example here, let's pretend, let's go ahead and draw it actually. I'm gonna go to Scala Draw. So I'm gonna go somewhere else. Okay, so let's pretend we want to build an app that looks like this. So pretend this is our app. So let's say we want to have just a huge text. Let's say we want to have the counter text like in the middle of the page. And let's say we want to have a header. Yoink, a header right here. And let's say we want to have a button on the right of the header. That's like maybe like two buttons, one for add, one for subtract. Something like this. Okay, very, very basic, but hopefully you get what I mean. So this is what we're gonna create, right? Very, very simple, but we have two buttons here. When I click this button, this number should go up. When I click this button, this number should go down, right? It's very similar to the Svelte example. Okay, but if we were to break this down into components, this is our header component, right? The one that we just created. And this is our, well, technically it's called hero, but it's basically our counter component. So this is our counter. Well, I guess we'll change the name of our component from hero to counter just to make it a little less confusing. So basically, in this whole thing right here, like the entire thing is our app, right? So this whole thing is our app component. App, like that. Let me put these in component syntax. There we go. Okay, so yeah, this whole thing is our app, right? And our app is made up of our header and our counter. So for the state of our app, let's put some state here. For the state of our app, we need to have the count. So right now, in this example, count is 3, right? And we need to have it so that when you click the button or the plus button on the header, the count goes up to 4, right? So that's what we're building today. So this is where we're at now. I'm gonna go ahead and let's first make the change of changing hero to counter. Let's just do that. So I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna right click to rename, and I'm gonna type counter. Okay, update imports. Oh, that's nice. It updates the imports automatically for us. I'm gonna say yes. And I'm gonna change this export or this function name from hero to counter. Make sure you change the export default as well. So I'm gonna save that. And then I'm gonna go back to our app.js. We're still importing it as hero, so we don't want that. We actually want to import it as counter. Save. All right, we're back in business. Okay, so let's go ahead and just do our UI first. So we're gonna actually make the app look like this first, and then we're gonna go and add the state. So in counter, let's go ahead and just, basically we want this to be full page, full height, and we want it to be vertically and horizontally centered. Oh boy, let's see if I can do this on first try. Okay, so to do that, we can basically have it be the entire screen height, so H screen, and then we can have the entire screen width, so width full. And then I think if we do flex, we can use flex to do item center. So let's save that and see what we get. Okay, and now we're vertically aligned. Now we can do justify center. And then I think we're gonna be horizontally aligned. Yes, I didn't expect that to work. Okay, so that's a really easy way to horizontally and vertically align something. You use flex, item center, justify center. So now it's in the middle, and we're gonna replace this lorem ipsum with the count. For now, we'll just pretend it's 0. We're gonna hard code it. Let's also make this giant, so text like 5XL. Center to div. Yeah, that's probably the first time I've ever done it without like looking at some documentation. It's very, very annoying. All right, so we're gonna make this super big. How big can we get this? I think the biggest in Tailwind is 7. Oh no, there's 8 now. No way. Okay, that's pretty big. All right, let's just leave it at that. Let's go to our header, and then right now we have our logo. I'm basically gonna just do a justify between on the header, so that we have the logo on the left and then the buttons on the right. So I'm gonna create another div, and this will be the div that hold the buttons. So I'm gonna add one button that has the plus button, right, and another button that has the minus, like that. And then on the header, I'm gonna go ahead and say flex, and then justify between. And justify between is going to basically space out the items. So in this case, I have 2 divs, right? I have one div with the logo, another div with the buttons, and it's gonna basically space them out so that the logo's on the far left and then the buttons on the far right. So justify between is pretty nifty for that. Okay, so I saved it. As you can see, it's pretty ugly. I should probably make these buttons look more realistic. I'm gonna go ahead and add some padding to them. I'm gonna add a background of white. Make sure the text is like darkish, because right now if I just did background white, because I have text white above, it's just gonna be impossible to see. And you know, realistically, we should turn these buttons into components too, but because I'm lazy, I'm just gonna copy and paste the styles. Okay, still pretty ugly. Maybe we can add a flex on this div and then put a gap to space them. So I'm just gonna add a flex and then maybe a gap x4 or something. All right, that's decent. Maybe I'll just give it a little bit more padding and make it rounded, and then we'll move on. We're not too worried about the styling here, right? At least I hope we're not. It's okay. It's not terrible. Maybe I'll make the text a bold, just to make it stand out a little bit more. All right, that didn't do too much, but whatever. We'll leave it. Not super happy with how it looks, but you know what can you do? I'll inch it up to P3. All right, there we go. That's a little better. Not the greatest, but basically this is our basic structure. I want to click this, and this goes up, and click this, and this goes down. Okay. So remember, guys, here we have to first define our state in the app component. And what we're going to do is we're going to pass this state, or rather, we want to pass the function that updates the state into header. And then we're going to pass the state itself into counter. So basically, count is going to go into counter as props. And then as part of state, we'll have a function that's called setCount that updates the count, and we're going to pass that into header. So I'm going to do state setCount, which is a function. And then we're going to pass this into the header. I probably should have drawn this diagram a little better, but wait, sorry, one second. My light is off. There we go. So this function is going to get passed into this function setCount is going to get passed into our header, right? Because when we click plus, we want to fire setCount and add 1, and then minus setCount, and then go down 1. So this is our basic diagram of our state. I was watching World Cup. Gotta rewatch the stream. Oh, no worries. Yeah, I'm gonna upload the stream right after. So you didn't miss too much. It was a very basic overview today. So don't worry about it too much. Okay, it's almost there. Let's go ahead and finish this up. So first, let's create our state. And the way you create state in React is with a function called useState. And there's going to be a lot more on these functions in the homework. So if it's confusing, don't worry. Just go through the homework, and then hopefully it'll be a lot more clear. But this is basically the easiest way to create state. So we're going to use a function called useState. And useState gives us an array of 2 items. The first item is the state variable itself. So the first item is basically this, the count. And the second item in the array is setCount. Super weird, but let me show you what that looks like. So check out my app component. I'm going to first say in a comment what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a count state. So first, I'm going to say const brackets. First, I'm going to say count. I'm going to define the variable count. Second function. The second part of the array, you always say what the state variable is, and then you add the word set to the front. So now it's setCount, like this, equals useState. And I'm going to go ahead and press enter to import it. My editor should import it automatically, or you can just type this out, import useState. Parentheses, and then inside the parentheses is where you put what you want the state to start at. So what do you want the initial state of the value of the state to be, right? For a counter, it makes sense if it's 0. So let's just put 0. So as you can see, if we mouse over count, count is a number. So count is the current value of what the state count is. setCount is a function that updates the count. Cool. So hopefully that makes sense. So to exemplify this, I'm going to go ahead and pass this count state into counter. And we're going to have it show up right here. So right now, nothing's going to change on our end since it's already 0. But let's just go ahead and pass it in. So you guys remember how props kind of look like this, right? Something like this. Like you create like something that looks like an attribute in HTML, right? From Svelte and stuff. It's very similar in React. First, in counter, we have to accept the props. So the easiest way to set the props is in the parentheses of the counter component right here. You can open up a new object, and then each line in the object is what props you're going to accept. So I'm going to say count, and count is going to be a number. And we can just go ahead and replace our 0 with brackets count, right? Because count is a variable that we're going to pass in. So let's save this. And in header, or sorry, not header, in app, if we wanted to pass this in, we could say count equals curly braces, count. Okay, so let's save this. As you can see, our 0 comes back. That's not impressive, right? Because it was 0 before. But to show you that it really works, if I change the state to like 5 and I save it, as you can see, it's now 5. So, basically this is very similar to Svelte, right? This is, in this case, we're accepting the props by defining it in an object in the parentheses. And then this name, so count, it allows us to just go ahead and say count equals whatever we want to pass in, and it gets passed in as a prop. Don't worry, I'm going to rush through this part because this is something that is probably easier to practice in your homework, but I just want to show you kind of the quick, easy comparison between Svelte and React, like the same way to do this counter example. Okay, so now let's finish it up. So in header, we don't need to pass the count into header, but we want to pass the set count in. So maybe we can go ahead and start by just defining it on here. Or actually, let's go into the header component and do it first. So header, remember we create brackets inside the parentheses, set count, and set count is going to be a function. So basically, on this button click, we need to do something, right? And if you remember, for Svelte, we had something that looked like this, right? On :click. In React, we do on click like this, like it's capital case. So like this, and then I'm gonna go ahead and just call set count. And one easy way to update the count is in set count, we can, if we want to hard code it to something, let's say we want plus to always set the count to 100. I don't know why. We can just go like this. So that's how we that's how we call set count. Actually, let me go ahead and put this in a anonymous function like this. Otherwise, it's gonna keep running. So yeah, this is the best way to set up a click handler. You create a anonymous function like this, and then you put whatever you want to call inside it. So let's test this out. Let's go ahead and go into header. Let's call set count, or let's pass in the set count props, set it equal to our set count function, save it. So now if I click set count, or sorry, if I click this plus button, it should set the count to 100. Yay. Not that impressive, right? But as you can see, whatever value is passed into here updates the count. And state, the thing about React is that it's very different from Svelte, because if you remember from Svelte, all we need to do is just update the count. Like we can say count is 100, right? This is like the Svelte way. This does not work in React. And that's because count is immutable. Immutable means that it should not be changed. So that's why they specifically give you the set count function as the safe way to update state. So that's one big difference between Svelte and React. Okay, so we obviously don't want it to go to 100. If we just want it to go up 1, what we can do is set count also accepts a function. So I believe we can pass in a function, and the first argument is the previous value. So count in here is going to be whatever the count currently is. So I think we could just say count plus plus to return count plus 1. Let's see if this works. I actually don't know if it works. So I'm going to refresh. Plus, nope, doesn't work. Oh wait, actually I know why. Because we have to, I don't know if count plus plus, I think count plus plus modifies the variable, but I think in this case, if we want to return the count, updated count, we can do plus 1. Let's see if this works. Okay, there we go. So set count can also, or like the set state function can also take in a function. And the first argument is the previous value. And this means you can just return whatever change you want to make to the value. So in this case, we're just adding 1. So let's do the same thing for the minus here. So on click, I'm going to create an anonymous function, set count. In the count function, I'm going to say the count parameter, and we're going to return count minus 1. So this is going to be the new value of count, basically. It's going to take count and do something with it. So let's refresh, minus minus, plus plus plus. Cool. So as you can see, our counter example is working. So all of this stuff might seem a little rushed, and really the main goal is just to show you at a high level what are the differences between React and Svelte, right? Because we did this exact same example in Svelte, and as you can see, there are a lot of differences. But once again, the main takeaway I want you guys to get from today is just to understand how to create React components. We'll get into state and props a lot deeper. Like this stuff, a little bit more intermediate. But for now, just understand the basics of how to create components, and you'll be in a good spot for today. Someone said, "Don't stream Sunday, please." Don't worry, I do not. I won't be streaming Sunday. I'm only streaming Tuesdays and Thursdays. But I wouldn't do that to y'all. Yeah, I know a lot of people are really into the finals right now. Okay, cool. So that's basically it for React. Hopefully it wasn't too fast. I think the homework will also clarify a lot of things. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So yeah, as mentioned in the beginning, we now have an official app that contains all the curriculum that we covered and more. So it'll be a really good way for y'all to review stuff that we covered in the past. It's just a good way to get a deeper dive and understand maybe some questions that have been lingering. So to get to the app, I guess I should have included a link in the slides, but there's a link in the beginning in the change logs. If you want to go to the app, you can just go to beta.onplayground.com. So let me go ahead and share this URL with y'all in the chat. And go ahead and, honestly, this screen will let you sign up too. I know it says login, but you can technically sign up. So go ahead and sign up for a new account. And what you do, you're going to see something like this. Let me go ahead and bring it up. So once you get into the app, you should see something like this. This is what the homepage looks like. As you can see, there's HTML, there's CSS, there's JavaScript, and there's React. For your homework, I really just want you to do the React course. You don't have to do all of it. Preferably, I want you to go up to custom hooks. Like you can end right here up to the custom hooks section. So maybe like the first half of the React course. And what this looks like is pretty straightforward. It's like Duolingo, where it's like it gives you a very basic explanation that you can just read. It gives you some quizzes that you can answer. So in this case, like what is the virtual DOM for? I was going to say to compare changes. And as you can see, it's very interactive, right? It's basically it's like notes in like a lecture, but also it gives you a quiz. So it could be a really good way to review the content. So do that for React. And if you do want, feel free to also go through the first courses as well for HTML, CSS, JavaScript. They don't take very long, but I find it really helps to like review this stuff, especially JavaScript. I think JavaScript, if you're going to review one, definitely consider reviewing the JavaScript one because it goes a lot more in depth into things that we didn't really have time to cover. But yeah, so for homework, basically, the only thing I really want you to do is just go through these first like 5-6 lessons, and then you should be in a pretty good spot. All right, go back. Cool. So that's all for today. Hopefully, yeah, this lesson, I think I could have structured a lot better. But hopefully, coming from Svelte, you'll understand why I didn't need to kind of explain everything out in a slide. I thought by showing you guys, it might be a lot easier to understand. But do let me know if there's still confusion around the basics of React, so like creating components and like functional and class components. Like that stuff is the stuff I really want you guys to take away from today. But everything else, I think the app should do a good job of covering. I just realized that there are some bugs. For example, right now, every single path that you guys are creating is showing up here. So I do need to fix that. Do let me know of bugs in the Discord. There are many, and I am fixing them as I can. But for the most part, the ability to go through courses should work just fine. All right, cool. I will take some time for questions, and if no questions, we'll go ahead and wind down here and prep for Thursday. And Thursday is going to be React again. We're just going to do a deeper dive and kind of explain a lot more of what we covered today. But for the most part, I just want you guys to get comfortable, maybe even spinning up your own React app and just like feeling your way around. It might seem like a lot, but we're going to spend a lot of time with React, so I think we're going to be a lot more comfortable with React than Svelte after maybe like a week or two. But yeah, I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, that's basically it. I guess I need to go ahead and fix this bug. Right now, every time someone signs up for the app, a new path is being created, which is not what I wanted. But yeah, that's that's just the life of development. As soon as you put something out, there's always going to be bugs. So bear with me there. Nice. I'm glad you like React so far. Typically my experience with teaching React is like half the people are like, this makes no sense at all. This is so confusing. The other half is like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I'm glad you think it's exciting so far. And yeah, React is super cool. I think it's a lot in the beginning to just digest like hooks, state, props, components. It just becomes, it's very overwhelming at first. But once you get used to like building React apps a lot, it becomes the best thing ever. Excuse me. So how someone asked, how deep are you going to go into React? Yeah, that's a really good question. We're going to go. We're not going to do like super advanced things like use memo, component optimization, or like we're not even going to really talk about Redux. Also because nobody really like Redux is not that popular anymore. We're going to talk about like basically a lot of the things that are in this course syllabus. Like so React router, the lifecycle methods, refs, context. We'll talk about that stuff. We'll talk a little about React Native as well. But really, where I'm going with React stuff is React is just a stepping stone into my favorite JavaScript framework, which I'm sure a lot of students here have heard me talk about before, but Next.js, because Next.js is how we're going to bridge the gap from front end into back end. So Next.js is going to allow us to just use React on a server and have like API routes and all that stuff. So Next.js is really our end goal. But so we're going to learn as much React as we can in order to get to Next.js. But I would say like we're going to go fairly deep into React, especially compared to Svelte. Svelte, we only did a very like service level dive. But for React, we're going to cover, I would say, intermediate level. I wouldn't say we're going to do advanced level React. Like we're not going to talk about like deep optimizations and all that, but we're going to be fairly familiar with React by the time we get out of this portion. Ooh, this is new. But yeah, anywho, I encourage you guys to check out Next.js too if you're curious about what it is. But we're going to be covering Next.js in 2 weeks-ish, TBD, something like that. So as soon as we get finished React, we're going to start diving into the back end side of things, and that's going to make our apps a lot more powerful. All right, I'm going to grab some water really quick. Do let me know if there are any final questions. If not, I need to go fix some bugs on the app, especially this. Where is it? The path bug is causing issues. I need to fix that, but yeah, there's some other things in the app I need to do as well. But hopefully, just let me know if there are any other issues in terms of like actually digesting the learning material. That's like the most important part. All right, cool, y'all. I'll probably start wrapping up now. Trying to think if there's anything else I missed. A link to the slides in the chat. I'm gonna upload the recording right after, so that anybody who's missed it can just quickly review. And yeah, that's basically it. I guess final resources for React. Let's see. Yeah, there's a lot of good React resources. I think. What was I looking up the other day? I think on the React website there's like free. Where is it? Oh yeah. So if you go here to the React.js community courses section, they have a huge list of like courses, and I would say the best free ones are which ones have I done? I've done the Egghead one. That was pretty good. This Scrimba one is also pretty good as well. Oh yeah, I agree. The new documentation is good. I actually haven't gotten I've only looked at it a little bit, but yes, the React documentation has improved a lot, and it could be a good way to kind of get the basics up and running. If you want something a lot more comprehensive than what we have in the app or just in the like Bootcamp, this Scrimba course is really good as well. It's pretty comprehensive, and they have a bunch of projects, so I'll link to that in the chat as well. What else? Yeah, there's also the React tutorial that, remember we did the Svelte tutorial, and React has something very similar. So feel free to go through that if that makes sense. The only thing about the React tutorial is that I think they still use class components everywhere, which is fine. I don't think it's bad to use class components. Like, you should definitely like understand what they do, but in terms of like actually writing React components, most of the time I would say you don't need to write class components like this. Like, I think a lot of the modern code bases just use functional now. But it's good to understand both ways, because let's say you get hired at a company and that company still uses class components, and let's say you've only written functional components. Well, that's going to be kind of an uncomfortable transition. So it's good to kind of know this syntax ahead of time. But as you can see, it's a lot more confusing than functional components. Oh, cool. It's a tic-tac-toe game. So it's definitely a harder tutorial than the one in Svelte. But if you're up for a challenge, this could be pretty fun. Yeah, I'm really glad they moved away from the class components to functional components, because before, if I was to teach React with class components, I need to help you guys understand like object-oriented programming and like what this does and what super does, like all of these words that I don't really introduce in my curriculum anymore, or at least till later, just because they're a little complex. So yeah, there was just a lot more complexity when it came to React with class components. So kind of glad that we're moving away from that. All right, cool, y'all. All right, I'm gonna probably start winding down now. Do let me know if you have any other questions. Do check out the app and give me any feedback that you have. But if not, that is basically the homework. And yeah, I guess I will see you all on Thursday for the next React session. So really quick question, Wolves, which do you prefer, Svelte versus React? So honestly, for my projects, like basically all my projects, I use React. Specifically, I use Next.js, which is the React a framework on top of React. That's just been my stack for like several years now. Not only because I went through it. Like basically, I'm very used to it. So you should just use whatever you're comfortable with, and I'm just very comfortable with React. So that's why I continue to use it for projects. But I think Svelte is a great pick for most projects. Like honestly, I should be probably using Svelte more. I'm just too used to React basically. So Svelte is like React is like my main front end library. Svelte is like my is like what I use for like smaller projects. And yeah, like you said, like React is a lot better for hiring. Like if you're trying to get a job as a developer, definitely I cannot recommend React enough. But if you're just building fun projects or like side projects, Svelte is a great choice as well. And honestly, if you know React already, it's a lot easier to pick up Svelte than it is the other way around. So definitely check that out as well. So someone said some questions are already answered. Is this normal? Yes, I'm actually about to push up I have a pull request that is about to fix that. That was a mistake from me. Like I kind of screwed that up. But yeah, this pull request that says oops, once I merge that, it will fix that issue. So sorry about that. Right now it's actually counting answers that other people have answered, not just your own. So that's why it's doing that. So let me go ahead and merge this. But once this is merged, it should fix that issue, I think. Yeah. I really like how minimal Svelte is. Honestly, like if Svelte and React could have switched places, like if Svelte was what the React team built first, it could have been a lot better. Just because it's just so much easier to learn and teach, and it's like more open source. So yeah, once Svelte can really get more popular and maybe even overtake React. I don't know if that's going to happen, but like that would be really interesting, and I think that could actually benefit the web development industry, just because React is just really hard for new devs to learn most of the time. Are we going to go for React with TypeScript? Yeah, definitely. So honestly, I wanted to introduce TypeScript earlier on. Actually, if I pull up like my where is it? Oh, here. If I pull up my Bootcamp curriculum, as you can see, like I have TypeScript here after React, Node.js, Next.js, TypeScript. And the reason why I'm introducing TypeScript on like the backend portion was I just find TypeScript is great to learn, but honestly, I feel like it slows you down in your learning journey a lot if you learn it too early. I think the real power of TypeScript really shows out when you're building full stack apps. So when we get to Next.js, Node.js, that is, I think, a good time for me to introduce TypeScript. And then we will build all of the full stack in TypeScript. So the front end will be TypeScript, the back end will be TypeScript, the database connections will all be in TypeScript. And that, I think, is how you get the true power of TypeScript, when everything is type safe. So we will be getting to React with TypeScript, but in the beginning, just because there's so much stuff with React that we have to learn first, I just thought it'd be a little easier if we introduced TypeScript after we were a little bit more comfortable with like front end and back end, just to make it a little bit more digestible. I didn't want to scare people away with like interfaces and types and all that crazy stuff. But honestly, when I was writing this code, I was so tempted to like write types just because I'm so used to like writing like typing like all my props and stuff. It's weird like not doing that now. But yeah, I just remember when I was learning TypeScript, it was just a pain in the butt until I really did it like end-to-end full stack. Yeah, for sure. Should see. Just discovered this live stream. Is there any way that I can watch the previous streams? Yeah. So if you go ahead and type in the !YouTube command like this, and that should contain that should link to my YouTube channel, which has a playlist of all the old streams. So I think what session is this? It's like 14, right? Yeah, this is session 14. So the 13 previous sessions should all be on my YouTube channel. So check that out if you do want to review that. And if you would love to join us for the live sessions, we stream at Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. EST. So today we just ended our session, but on Thursday we'll be back for another session that will cover React more deeper. But yeah, check out our YouTube channel and let me know if that works for you. All right, let me see if that merge request is merged. Oh no, it's not merged yet. Let me merge it. Once this is like fully merged in, then the question answering bug shouldn't be there anymore. So sorry about that. Yeah, for sure. I appreciate that. Welcome. Yeah. Oh, nothing that could be helpful if you want to see like the overall curriculum, like the whole syllabus. You can use this Notion command, which will give you the link to the Notion. As you can see the whole outline. And if you want to join our Discord as well, the Discord is just where we kind of put updates for like events, office hours, live streams, and all that. That could be a good resource as well. So check those out and let me know if those are helpful. Yeah, hopefully after this is live, we shouldn't get those issues. Yeah, this is what was causing the issue. Before it was like grabbing all the answered questions from everyone, but then I filtered it so that it's only gonna work on your own user. So, all right. Okay, so I've been a junior Java dev for the past 2 years, and I feel like it's kind of holding me back since the team is really small and we don't do code reviews. What would you suggest as a career boost to get out of the small business archetype? Oh yeah, that's tough for me to answer. I'd say the Java world is very far from what I know. I'm basically only in the JavaScript and Python world of things. I think it really, since seems that you're coming from like a software engineering background, I think one thing maybe to consider is like what. Oh, you're actually moving into the direction of JS and Python as well. Okay, yeah, that's a good move. I think just with how hiring is going, just JavaScript and Python are just becoming very increasingly popular. And yeah, basically what we cover in this bootcamp is where is my tool? Yeah, here it is. This whole curriculum that we covered in this bootcamp is designed to get you into the role of full stack software engineer. So full stack just being client and server, just being able to kind of work through all parts of that. I don't necessarily know if that's the career boost you're looking for, but in my experience, what I found is that people that know both sides, like the client and server, they are usually a lot more hireable than someone that only knows one side. Just because it's rarer to find people that can do everything on a full stack level. Like if you can build the front end and you can build your back end, that's actually very, very valuable, and it makes you a really like hireable candidate. So that's something to consider. I think another like with where you're at in your journey, since you have dev experience, it wouldn't be as hard for you to like learn all of this stuff as opposed to someone with like no programming experience. So that's something to consider. And I would only really learn Python if you're considering getting into like data science, to be honest. Like I only use Python for like machine learning and like AI stuff. I do not really use it for web development. So if you're going to like there's two tracks, right? If you're going to go down the full stack web development track, definitely JavaScript and TypeScript are basically the only languages like you need to learn there. But for the Python route, I would really say like you should only consider very heavily investing in Python if you're going to go into data science. There might be exceptions to that rule, but like if you're going to go into just backend, I would not pick just Python in my opinion. Oh, nice. So the session is correct for the answers. The main progress bar at the top. Oh, yes, I do need to fix that main progress bar as well. But thanks for letting me know that that's working. I'll work on a fix for that progress bar next. But yeah, I really appreciate that. So you said we use a component library at the moment, and we have a Java backend with SQL Workbench. Okay, yeah. So it sounds like you already have familiarity with the like those technologies. Maybe just like I think picking up the modern, like a very modern web development stack of like TypeScript, React, like Prisma, like those databases and stuff, like being able to create projects from scratch with those like skills, that's basically what we're like building up to in this boot camp. So you've come to the right place. And I just find that really, it makes you feel powerful, if that makes sense. Like you can just build like whatever project you want like really quickly, which is really nice. And it just opens a lot more job opportunities. So yeah, definitely like feel free to just follow through this curriculum or just follow through the boot camp, because I think the stuff we cover will get you to that place. So it's good. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. TypeScript is amazing. I think without TypeScript, it is very hard to convince someone like yourself who comes from Java or whatnot to go into JavaScript, just because JavaScript's kind of like the Wild West. But TypeScript makes things a lot safer, so that's good. Where can I get this curriculum? Yeah, so this page right here, I think you can access if you just, here's the ! Notion command, or I can just share the link with you here. This is not full, like the curriculum is updated, but if you click into each one, I don't think I haven't finished uploading like the content here yet. That I'll probably get to that at the end. But I use this as like the outline, I guess, for what we cover in the bootcamp. And then the YouTube channel will contain like all the past recordings if you can't make the live streams. Yeah, definitely. And one other thing to mention is that once we get into Next.js, like this section of the course, we're going to start building like AI apps. Or I shouldn't, technically we're just going to use AI APIs, but still they're AI apps. So that's one fun way for us to like learn web development and to play around with AI APIs and have some cool projects on your portfolio, just because, everyone wants to get into this like generative AI space, and not a lot of people know how to like actually, make projects with it. So hopefully if you get to this section, like you can come out of this with some cool AI projects as well. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, no, I'm super excited for the Next.js and TypeScript portion as well. I'm in my head, I'm trying to think the best way to introduce TypeScript, because I just remember when I was learning TypeScript, it was just a huge pain in the butt coming from JavaScript, and there's probably no way around that, but I'm thinking of ways to make it less of a pain in the butt. But yeah, that's why I put it after this Next.js section. Cool, y'all. All right. I think that's basically, let's see. Yeah, definitely. It's if you don't have without JavaScript knowledge, it definitely like it's really really difficult to pick that stuff up. So someone asked, you will use Redux for state management. Honestly, that's something I considered, but one, I'm not that great at Redux because I actually don't really use Redux for state management. All I use is the React context API for state management. I mean, I'm not building like a million line application. Like maybe if I built like a massive application by myself, like yeah, I would use Redux. But I basically just use the context API that comes with React, and that has served me fine for state management. I just think overall Redux just has lost popularity in Steam. Like on Twitter, on web development Twitter, people are constantly crapping on Redux now, and it's probably because like Redux had a massive lead in terms of like being super popular. And I guess maybe because of context and like other libraries, like nobody really uses Redux anymore. So because of that, I think in the course platform that we have, where is it? Yeah, so on the course platform, we actually have a Redux section that you can like understand the basics of it, but we don't fully cover Redux. So we cover we cover enough that you can talk about Redux in an interview, like answer some basic Redux questions, but we're not actually going to build things with Redux. If you do use state management, I prefer you use the context library actually. I looked at Angular for a potential front end for our app, but no. Yeah, good choice. Angular is just something that, oh man, Angular was like, looking back, like in the bootcamp I went to, we learned Angular, right? Back in the day, everyone was learning Angular, and I'm just, if I could like go back in time, it's like, I do not remember how, I think after learning Angular, I was so confused I wanted to give up. Because Angular is just so like confusing. It was just, it made no sense whatsoever. I know React is confusing, but I think Angular was even more confusing. And it's like not even that performant, or like the advantages aren't even that great. So yeah, I'm glad we kind of moved on from that. Yeah, there was just a lot of work to set up things for Angular. It was just a pain. What do you find so confusing about Angular? Well, I guess I'm referring to Angular 1. I think Angular 2, or whatever it is called now, Angular 5 or 4, it's a lot like more like React, so it makes it simpler. But I don't know. I think with Angular 1, I remember being super confused by directives. I think this is something that people notoriously get caught up on, but like Angular directives just confused the heck out of me. Like I did not like this ng class, like ng like style, like creating your own directives. Like I don't know, this is just like so painful. Wait, is it really called Angular 15? No way. I don't even, wait, you're right. Holy crap, it's on Angular 15. No way. Wow. This shows how long it's been since I looked at Angular. Oh yeah, it looks a lot more like React now, so that's nice. But yeah, I have not touched Angular in a long time. Oh, they released on half a year basis. That makes sense, because I could have sworn I looked a couple years ago. They were on Angular 4s, and yeah, I guess half a year basis will get you to 15 in a few years. But you know, it's like once you know React, or like once you have a very good grasp on one framework, and let's say you get hired for a job that like makes you write Angular, then you know it should be fine to like pick up like Angular 15. But the OG Angular, like regular Angular 1, that was completely different. That was like, there was nothing like that. So yeah, Angular JS. That's what I'm referring to. Just Angular JS, and then there's Angular 15, which apparently are different. So yeah, it was just a pain. Yeah, I really know Angular very well, but not React. So I'm curious what you'll show here. Yeah, definitely. Like I'm hoping that. Oh. So I'm hoping that like React is going to be a lot more digestible. Especially we came from Svelte. Like last week we started doing Svelte stuff, and if you guys haven't checked out Svelte, I highly recommend it. Svelte is just a really good way to bridge the gap. Like it's a good way. It's like an entry level way to get into React. It basically just builds on top of just regular HTML, CSS, and JavaScript without a lot of the complex like boilerplate or bundling stuff. So we use Svelte as a bridge basically between our HTML, CSS, JavaScript unit and React. So if you haven't checked it out, I recommend starting with Svelte. Once you've checked it out, yeah, that's basically where we are now with just going through the basics of React. So tune in Thursday, and then we will be going into like kind of more intermediate concepts in React. All right, cool. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I missed here. I do have to get running to a meeting. But yeah, if there are any final questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and I can try to get to them. But if not, I'll just do really one quick review of the homework. Yeah, so the homework you can find at this link, this custom app that we made. Just feel free to create an account there and you should be able to follow through the curriculum. And yeah, the homework is basically just to do as much, do maybe like half of the React course. And if you want to brush up on the basics, you can do that as well. All right, for sure, y'all. Thanks for all for joining. And I will see you guys Thursday, I guess, for the second React session. All right, thanks y'all for hanging around. I'll catch y'all later.